With a really strong showing at Masters Tokyo, ending the event in 5th to 6th place, newcomers to the global scene, at least Edward Gaming, turned a lot of heads, and I wanted to break them down and sort of explain who they are on a team level and what are their strengths, and of course, a little bit of what are their flaws that another team could capitalize upon. So first and foremost, we should talk a little bit about why Chinese Valorant is so different and so unique. China is oftentimes on its own little island in esports, and part of that is a political and social, cultural reason why, but it's also because China is just such a large region population-wise that even their tier 2, tier 3 esports have such a strong player base and viewership that there is no need to combine them with other countries, with other regions to make some sort of super region like you often see with, for example, North America and Latin America becoming the Americas region. There's, of course, EU, a bunch of little countries all combined together, though that obviously is not the same as... Anyway, you know what I mean. Fine, that's EMEA, where it's Middle East and Africa as well as Europe. You often see the combinations happening in Southeast Asia, with Australia, where they fit into the mix, and you got Korea, which can sometimes be its own region, but in the case of Valorant, it's combined with the rest of the Pacific. But of course, China also received Valorant later than everyone else in the world did. So they're on a little bit of a different trajectory. And while it's silly to think that China would always be a poor team because they're not exactly a developing region within esports, they're certainly not a developing region when it comes to FPS titles. Do not use Counter-Strike as the metric for FPS. The Eastern region has FPS titles that you have never even heard of. And we knew that while they would get good eventually, Chinese teams' showings at previous global events has been poor, so you never really knew what to expect. But Edward Gaming, as well as Attacking Soul, but let's be honest, especially Edward Gaming, are here. They've arrived. They've shown that I think China is ready to play on a more consistent basis whenever they show up at global tournaments. So the roster of Edward Gaming is, of course, star player Kong Kong. He is their star duelist. He is their main primary duelist. There's Hao Dong, who is their smokes and IGL. There is Nobody, who is the initiator. There's Chi-Chi, who is their primary sentinel slash lurk. And then there is Smoggy, who is their flex, will play either breach or will be their secondary duelist of Raze or Jet. On a whole, this is a fairly aggressive team. Not aggressive in the way that Paper Rex are. In fact, I would probably say that Paper Rex are more aggressive than Edward Gaming are, but Edward Gaming are always looking for a fight, whereas other teams will use their utility, use their abilities to sort of play a footsie game on the map. Edward Gaming are always going to be going for aim duels to try and gain map control, and obviously it's backed up by utility. Obviously they use abilities, but they are willing to fight you right off the bat every single time for that map control, whether they are on attack or defense. On the defense, they are very, very active in trying to push that line of scrimmage, to take a NFL analogy, forward and give them a little bit more of an advantage rather than just strictly waiting around for the attackers to make the first move. And oftentimes that means that they are in control of the tempo, whether they're on the attack or the defense. Generally, on a clear-cut mirror matchup, it's the attacking team that sort of sets the tempo. EDG do a really good job even on defense to try and control the tempo of the attack. Now, this does mean that sometimes they live or die off of their aim duels alone, but the ability to play off of each other and play very, very aggressive and sort of get the more slower controlled meta of the other regions a little tilted has definitely played into their advantage at Masters Tokyo. So this team, as I mentioned, plays off of each other very, very well, but you can't really talk about this team without talking, of course, about their star duelist, Kong Kong. Many people are saying that he is mechanically the best player on that team. However, I don't subscribe to the idea that he is the star player if you are making direct comparisons to other star players like Durka on Fnatic or Ye on Optic. The way that he enables his team is in a very different way. In fact, in a lot of team setups, it's the rest of the team supporting that star player for them to perform at their best. I think Kong Kong, the way that he is a star player is his aggression and his ability to get kills where realistically you wouldn't expect them to be, enables the rest of the team to follow up. Because he is frankly just a very, very aggressive player. He is going to push you, and I don't mean in the sense of making you play better. I mean, he is going to get right in your face. You try and smoke in front of him when he's on the attack, or hell, even if he's pushing for the retake or just pushing for some map control, he will likely dash, if he's on the jet, for example, dash through it, take the aim duel right to your face, not allow you to play your game, not allow you to control the tempo and try and slow him down. He is going to get into the mix, and whether he gets the aim duel off or not, the fact that he's able to be that wedge, be that crowbar onto whatever area of the map we're talking about here for the rest of the team to follow up and actually take that control is definitely what sets him apart from other star players. To use an American football analogy, whereas other star players, it can be like the star running back where they're given the ball and they just sprint towards the end zone. Kang is the greatest offensive lineman, where he is 3 times your size. He will rush you down, blow past you, and create an opening for the rest of his team to take that ball into the end zone. And that can be illustrated through looking at his VLR rating. When you look at the ACS, which is a lot more linear of was the damage dealt, were the kills there, then he is often on the top of the charts. But when you look at VLR's rating, that tries to add different levels of value to different kills, then Kang is actually routinely in 2nd or 3rd place. And I think the biggest cause of that is his KAST, is the percentage of rounds that he is actually involved in the fight is generally 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Kang has many pop-off rounds. There are a lot of situations that he is able to find some amazing opening or some amazing save for Edward Gaming. But I think his value is significantly more than just the kills that he puts on the board. One of the best things that he'll do is push with an operator on the defensive side. In this example, if the attack has slowed down their push, they're waiting for maybe a 45-second push in, he'll take a peek with an operator. It's an incredibly risky peek, but he has the operator skills to have a high chance of getting that kill. And if he doesn't see anyone, that feeds his team so much information on where the hit is likely going to occur. And so it's moves like that that don't even necessarily get a kill on his scoreboard that add a lot of value. But this play style, this style of player only works if the rest of the team is able to follow up in a strong way. And looking at Edward Gaming, obviously they do. Every single one of these players has had a match in Masters Tokyo where they've been at the top of the leaderboard on Edward Gaming. Smoggy and Nobody, I think, are a really good core. Chichu is a really good clutch player. And Haodong, as the smokes player, will play with the rest of the team, try and go for those initial aim duels, and just play very aggressive in your face and be successful at it as well. The one concern with this team, and it still revolves around Kang, is their operator usage. There's a reason why other teams do not use the operator nearly as much as Kang does. I think it was said in their match against Paper Rex, at least going into that match, that Kang had the operator 46% of the time on the defensive side. That is an insane number because it's only 12 rounds. The first 2 you're definitely not going to count, so that's 10 rounds. He has it close to 5 rounds every single match on the defensive side, and that's only assuming if every single match went all the way 12 rounds when they were on the defensive side. This is a huge economic investment to put in one player. And again, Kang is an amazing player, arguably one of the best operator players that we have. It is still a huge investment. If you lose that operator, if one round goes wrong, they are really hurting because of how quickly they are to invest so much into this one weapon. And when it works, it's absolutely amazing. The problem is the times when it doesn't work. So I think that's probably going to be one of my bigger questions about Edward Gaming the next time we see them at a global event, is how often they're giving a player like Kang the operator. Because while this game isn't as punishing economically as other FPS titles are, it is still something that teams are very aware of. I don't think Edward Gaming is going to go as far as, say, Fnatic's experiment with only buying half armor, but I think their fast and loose play with their economy is one of their biggest weaknesses. There's also the question of how are teams going to be able to play when they're more used to the more aggressive, not counter meta, but non-meta playstyle of Edward Gaming. It's sort of a similar question that we had for Paper Rex when they first had a really good showing on the global scene. A surprise left hook can catch you off guard the first few times, but at some point teams are going to be more used to it and more aware of it. Saying that Edward Gaming are all aim and no brain is a complete misunderstanding on how Valorant works. For starters, this is an FPS. The goal is to defeat your opponents. The goal is to click their heads, drop them to the ground. You win the round that way. Utility is a way to give your team an advantage and your opponents a disadvantage in those aim duels, but just because Edward Gaming used their utility in a different way to sort of set the battleground in a way that the other regions have sort of handshook on how they're supposed to do it is incredibly small-minded. Yes, sometimes Edward Gaming live or die off of their aim, but that is not new to an FPS. That's the whole point. That's the whole core of an FPS title. The only main difference is that they'll use tempo as a tool a lot more than other teams will. Tempo is always going to be a tool in other teams' toolkits, but Edward Gaming put that at the top of their list in terms of like how often they use it, how aggressively they use it, whereas other teams, that's more of like a secondary or tertiary consideration. So yeah, that's Edward Gaming as I understand them. I'm going to be really excited to see them the next time we do get to see them at a global event, whether that is Champions or not. That's my video. Like and subscribe. See you next time.